Hey everyone, and welcome back to Promptly Speaking Podcast. So glad you could join us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for tuning in. Typically we cover all sorts of topics, but today we're actually diving into something quite a bit heavier, I'd say.
Definitely heavier. We're going to be talking about Luis Garavito, who, well, let's just say he's one of history's most prolific and, frankly, horrifying serial killers. It's a tough one, for sure. So, James, when we talk about Luis Garavito, or La Bestia as he became known, it's just like impossible not to wonder, what made him this way? What was his background?
Yeah, absolutely, Abby. I mean, it's a question that always comes up with these extreme cases, right? So, Luis Alfredo Garavito Cubillos, he was born in Genova, Quindío, Colombia, back in 1957.
Right. So, not that long ago, really. And from what I understand, his early life was pretty awful. Like really, really disturbing.
Oh, unbelievably so. Reports suggest he experienced severe abuse, both physical and sexual, from a very young age. And, it was apparently a very turbulent and chaotic household.
Which I guess kind of starts to paint a picture, doesn't it? Not an excuse, obviously, but you start to see where some of that darkness might have started to fester.
Precisely. And it wasn't just the home environment. He was also frequently homeless, lived on the streets quite a bit during his teenage years, which exposed him to, well, all sorts of vulnerabilities and dangers himself.
It's almost like it compounded everything. The trauma at home, then the harsh realities of the street. It's just a recipe for something truly horrific, sadly.
Yeah, and I think that's where the La Bestia moniker really kind of comes in, isn't it? It suggests something beyond human, which, frankly, after what he did, is a natural reaction. But his early life, it kind of gives us a glimpse into the deep, deep psychological wounds that, could have contributed.
So, having discussed his background, which is just deeply unsettling, it brings us to the absolutely chilling part, how he actually operated. His modus operandi was, well, it was calculated and utterly predatory.
Yeah, and this is where it gets, honestly, even more stomach churning. He would primarily target, street children, vulnerable kids, often boys between the ages of, say, 8 and 13. And he would approach them with, like, false promises.
Right, like, hey, I'll give you food, or I'll give you clothes, or, I'll get you a job. Things that these incredibly vulnerable children were desperate for. He'd gain their trust.
Exactly. He'd pose as a priest sometimes, or a salesman, just somebody seemingly benevolent. He was a master manipulator, and he'd often take them to isolated rural areas where he'd then commit these horrific acts.
Ugh. And the number, James, I mean, we touched on it briefly, but the sheer staggering number of lives he took, it's almost impossible to comprehend.
Yeah, I mean, the official count, the confirmed count, is 193. But get this, he actually confessed to killing over 300 boys. Some estimates go as high as 400. Like, think about that for a second.
300 plus children. It's beyond a number, isn't it? It's an entire population of young lives just gone. All these hopes, all these futures erased by one person. And the fact that they were street children already on the fringes of society, it just adds another layer of profound sadness to it.
Absolutely. And that's why he was able to operate for so long too, right? These kids, they often didn't have families looking for them immediately or, reporting them missing. It was a horrific exploitation of the most vulnerable.
So, after all that, the sheer scale of his depravity, the hundreds of children, how was he actually caught? I mean, it seems like he operated for so long undetected.
Yeah, it's wild, isn't it? He wasn't actually caught for the murders initially, if you can believe it. He was arrested in April of 1999, but for an attempted kidnapping. I think it was of a young man, not a child, which is interesting.
Oh, wow. So it was almost like a minor slip up, relatively speaking, that finally brought him into the police's radar.
Exactly. And once he was in custody, they started questioning him, right? And that's when things just went off the rails. His confession was, I mean, it was chilling because it wasn't remorseful at all. In fact, it was almost, like you said, boastful.
I've read about that. He he didn't just confess, he detailed everything like almost clinically. And he pointed out graves, didn't he? It was like he wanted to ensure they knew the full extent.
Yeah, he totally did. He described the locations of dozens of unmarked graves, which led to the discovery of, these mass graves. It's it's just horrifying to think about. He was so matter of fact about it too. Like he was describing, I don't know, going to the grocery store.
And the disbelief, I can only imagine the shockwaves that sent through Colombia. Like hearing about one serial killer is horrific, but then for the extent of it to be revealed that one man was responsible for hundreds of children?
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't just disbelief, it was outright horror, you know? The nation was just gripped by it. And it wasn't just Colombia either. The story quickly made international headlines. Everyone was just trying to wrap their heads around how someone could commit such unspeakable acts so many times and for so long.
It's the kind of news that just it rocks your sense of security, doesn't it? Knowing that this level of evil, it existed. And the fact that so many vulnerable children were targeted and, nobody knew, it's just awful.
So, after all that, the sheer scale of his depravity, the hundreds of children, how was he actually caught? I mean, it seemed like he operated for so long undetected.
Right. And then there's the whole legal aftermath of it, which is just just as wild, if not more so in a way. I mean, his sentence was incredibly controversial, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. So, Garavito, he was actually sentenced to a staggering 1,853 years in prison, which, sounds like an eternity, but due to Colombian law at the time, and because he actually cooperated by revealing more grave sites, he was able to take advantage of these leniency laws.
Leniency after confessing to hundreds of murders? Wait, how does that even make sense?
It doesn't really from a moral standpoint, right? But legally, he was able to get his sentence reduced significantly. I think to something like just 22 years. The idea was that by revealing the graves, they could, bring some closure to the families, identify more victims, but the cost was this incredibly lenient sentence.
22 years for potentially well over 100 children? Oh my gosh, I can only imagine the public outrage that must have caused. It's unfathomable. People must have been furious.
Furious doesn't even begin to cover it, Abby. The public outcry was massive. People were absolutely horrified that a monster like him could ever potentially walk free again after only serving a couple of decades. It was a huge, huge national debate, And, it highlighted some serious issues within the legal system there.
So he never actually got out though, right? Like he died in prison?
No, thankfully, he never did. Luis Garavito actually died relatively recently, in October of 2023, while still incarcerated. He passed away from cancer, I believe. So, he did spend the rest of his life behind bars.
Well, I guess that's some small mercy in an otherwise horrific story, but still, the fact that the possibility of him getting out was even on the table and the legal gymnastics that allowed for such a reduced sentence, it just leaves so many lingering questions about justice, doesn't it? And how society deals with such extreme evil.
It totally does. And his case, it really forced Colombia to reevaluate its laws concerning serial killers and especially the protection of vulnerable children. It's just a dark, dark part of human history that you just hope is never, ever repeated.
Listening to all this, I can't wrap my head around it. How does a human being become that utterly depraved? It just makes you wonder about, I don't know, the darkest corners of human nature, right?
Yeah, Abby, it really does. I mean, it's just impossible to fully comprehend that level of evil, isn't it? To take so many innocent lives, especially children, with seemingly no remorse. It's a profound darkness that's hard to even articulate.
It really is. And the societal implications, too, like we talked about, the fact that it took so long, that the legal system had these loopholes, it really forces you to confront how society protects its most vulnerable, or rather, how it sometimes fails to.
Exactly. And it just really highlights the need for constant vigilance and to, you know, understand and address the root causes of such horrific behavior, even though it feels impossible to truly understand Garavito's motivations. It's just a tragic, absolutely tragic chapter.
Okay, well, I guess that brings us to the end of what has been a really, really heavy episode today.
Yeah, definitely one of the more somber ones we've done, for sure.
For sure. So, to all our listeners out there, thank you so, so much for sticking with us through this. We know it wasn't an easy topic, but we felt it was, important to cover.
Absolutely. And if you've been listening and enjoying Promptly Speaking, even on the tough topics like this one, please do remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. It really, really helps us out.
It does. And we'll be back with another episode next time. We'll probably, try to find something a little less intense.
Yeah, maybe something a bit lighter. But until then, thanks again for tuning in to Promptly Speaking Podcast.